Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're embarking on a seriously exciting, data-driven treasure hunt into one of the most energy-dense regions on the entire planet, Canada's Athabasca Basin. We are going to dig deep into the geology and the data to see exactly how explorers are uncovering the world's next major uranium targets. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's dive right into this with a number that puts everything into perspective: 10x to 100x. The reason explorers are so incredibly hyper-focused here is that the Athabasca Basin is essentially the Saudi Arabia of uranium. The deposits found in this basin consistently boast grades that are 10 to 100 times higher than the global average. I mean, that is a staggering multiplier, and it completely changes the economics of any potential discovery.
Now you might be wondering, why does finding this high-grade uranium matter so much right this very second? Well, simply put, we're right in the middle of a massive global nuclear renaissance. Over 30 countries have committed to tripling their nuclear capacity by 2050. And this surge, it's being driven by the incredibly energy-hungry demands of artificial intelligence and the massive data centers powering the apps on your phone right now. We absolutely have to have secure, reliable, carbon-free baseload power. That's not negotiable, and that makes these specific, high-grade uranium targets absolutely vital for our future.
So let's look at the strategic heavyweight partnership that is actually driving this exploration forward.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the sheer leverage at play here. Foremost Clean Energy isn't just wandering out into the wilderness starting from scratch. They've teamed up with Denison Mines, which is a massive $4 billion uranium developer. Through this joint venture, Foremost gets direct access to decades of Denison's historic drilling and geophysical data. This is a huge deal because it massively de-risks their exploration across 10 distinct properties before a single new drill bit even touches the ground.
And guys, this isn't just some casual collaboration. Foremost holds the option to earn up to a 70% majority interest across a staggering 330,000-plus acre portfolio. They've already poured over $8 million into qualifying exploration expenditures. That actually means they just officially completed Phase 2 of their earn-in agreement a full 15 months ahead of their October 2027 schedule. You don't do that unless you're planning on some really aggressive, sustained drilling.
All right, let's take a literal deep dive into the geology here with a geographic target tour.
So the crucial point is distinguishing between the two main zones of this massive land package. On one side, we have the eastern Athabasca properties. These sit right on proven uranium corridors, right next to established infrastructure and legendary producing mines like McArthur River and Cigar Lake. But then, on the other side, you have the blue sky properties. Now, this is frontier territory. It's largely underexplored, sitting further west, but it holds this massive, untamed geological potential for entirely new discoveries.
Which brings us to our first stop on the tour, Foremost's absolute flagship property, Hatchet Lake, and specifically a target called the Tuning Fork. To truly understand the potential at Hatchet Lake, you first need to understand the unconformity. Think of this as the ultimate prize zone. It's where the magic happens. The unconformity is basically this critical geological boundary where younger sandstone sits directly on top of older, crystalline basement rock. In the Athabasca Basin, the mixing of fluids right at this boundary is the exact recipe for precipitating massive uranium deposits. It's the reason the drills are targeting this specific depth.
And honestly, they're getting incredibly close. Just look at this data from Hatchet Lake's inaugural drill programs. They stepped out along two main zones, the Richardson Trend and the Tuning Fork. Hole 29 along the Richardson Trend actually hit 0.11% uranium. Meanwhile, holes 11 and 12 at the Tuning Fork target didn't just hit anomalous uranium. They revealed intense clay alteration, graphitic puritic faults, and really significant structural disruption. This basically proves their structural models are incredibly accurate.
Now, what happens if you don't hit the massive pod of uranium on the very first hole? Well, that's exactly where pathfinder elements come in. Think of these as geochemical breadcrumbs left behind in the rock, elements like boron, copper, nickel, and cobalt. Finding these pathfinders is honestly like finding a glowing neon sign pointing directly to an active hydrothermal system that's capable of depositing high-grade uranium.
And this brilliantly illustrates that point. Look at what they're actually pulling out of the ground at the Tuning Fork target. They are seeing up to 5,670 parts per million of boron, plus elevated copper, nickel up to 387 ppm, and cobalt up to 209 ppm. Guys, these aren't just random minerals. This specific cocktail of elements completely proves that a highly active uranium mineralizing system is at play right beneath their drills.
Okay, let's shift our tour eastward to the next major targets, the Murphy Lake and McLean pods.
Over at the Murphy Lake South property, the drills have intersected a massive 400-meter footprint of strong hydrothermal alteration and reactivated graphitic shear zones. This is effectively a giant underground plumbing system, and what makes this so incredibly exciting is its location. It sits right near IsoEnergy's record-breaking Hurricane deposit, which boasts phenomenal grades of over 34% uranium.
So check out this three-step anatomy of a discovery mapped out for you here. Step 1. You locate the graphitic pallets, which act as the reactive sponge rock. Step 2. You find the hydrothermal clay alteration. That's your plumbing. Step 3. Hit weak uranium to prove the system is fertile. At Murphy Lake, historic drilling already hit 0.183% uranium. So Foremost literally has all three of these critical steps lined up perfectly for their upcoming drill phases.
Then we've got the McLean Lake property. Recently, Areno ran a winter exploration drilling program here, focusing on a zone known as the 8C pod, which spans about 150 meters of strike length. Out of 24 holes drilled during that winter program, an absolutely incredible 14 intersected uranium above the cutoff grade. I mean, that just shows you the sheer density and concentration of mineralization running through these eastern corridors. Let's move to and see how this builds into the frontier territory, the blue sky targets. Now, people might label these properties as underexplored, but that definitely doesn't mean they're empty. Take this CLK property, for example. We actually have historical drill results from previous operators showing hits of nearly 1% uranium. To put that into perspective for a second, almost anywhere else in the world outside the Athabasca Basin, 1% is a world-class mine. To get this property totally drill-ready, Foremost is flying advanced mobile MT airborne geophysical surveys to pinpoint exactly where to sink the next hole. And then, from a purely structural geology standpoint, the GR property is just wild. It sits strategically right on top of the Grease River Shear and the Black Bay Fault. The Grease River Shear alone exhibits up to 7 kilometers of lateral structural offset. That is a massive geological disruption. The Earth practically tore itself apart here. So why does that matter? Because that is the exact kind of massive, deep basement rock faulting you absolutely need to crack the Earth open and create a high-grade, unconformity uranium deposit.
Okay, bringing the macro and micro narrative all together, let's talk about vectoring toward the unconformity. Foremost CEO Jason Barnard really hit the nail on the head here. He says, it becomes a geological situation where you vector back to the unconformity, you look for that uranium discovery. And that's exactly it. Every single drill hole, every pathfinder element they map, every graphitic shear zone they intersect. It's not just a random hit. It is a highly calculated step, vectoring the drills right back to that unconformity boundary where the massive high-grade prize is actually hiding.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, here's what I want to leave you with. We have multiple drill rigs turning right now, all backed by decades of Denison's historic data, with critical assays actively pending. As these drills follow those Pathfinder breadcrumbs deeper and deeper toward the unconformity, which of these targets is going to be the one to unlock the Athabasca's next mega discovery? The clean energy transition is waiting for the answer. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive, and keep your eyes on the data.